Hello, everybody. Steve Rosenbaum here from Flawless Follow-Up, and I've got a very special friend I want to introduce you to, somebody that I've gotten to know very well, but also has written a really, really cool book that we'll talk about in a minute. But here's why I invited him on today. All right. Steve Kahle is an expert at recall, and he's written an entire book about it and about the process of recalling. And I think it ties in very well to what we're talking about with networking and meeting people. Because I know this, I know a lot of people, they go networking and they see the same people and everybody loves them. The big hugs in the room, there's handshakes, people happy to see each other each and every time. But then at the moment that some business or some alignment should be coming up after the meeting, in that moment, they're not being recalled. And that's where a lot of the business happens, is outside of that room. So let me introduce you to my friend, author Steve Kahle, who's the author of the book Leadership Recall. And I thought we'd have a conversation about this. Steve, how are you, brother?
I'm thrilled to be alive. How about you, Steve?
How do you beat that? Of course. That's what it's all about. Well, Steve, you heard the introduction. And, I love your book. I bought your book. And, you and I are a lot alike besides having a great first name. But we're process guys. And
we are.
Yeah. And you have a process for recall. And why is that important? And how does it apply to networking?
Yeah. So Steve, I learned very early in my career when I was going through college, I was bartending, and I quickly learned that if I could remember people's names and the names of their drinks, that it created a completely different relationship, that I wasn't just another bartender, I became their friend. And then I went further. I realized, hey, if I learned the names of their kids, the names of their pets, and I remembered that and was able to operationalize that in a conversation, the ability for me to create these meaningful connections, it's almost like you're putting fire on that ability to create this connection and create these genuine, warm, lasting relationships. And that was sort of the big moment. And I had a simple system where I had a 3-ring binder and I had pre-formatted pages that were printed out. So if I met you, Steve, for example, I would figure out a mnemonic, like maybe you remind me of my Uncle Bob, and I'd be able to anchor that name well. And then I would, write down what kind of drink you wrote, a drink you like, and maybe you came in with your wife, Sherry, and I'd, I'd make sure I got her name right. And also, whatever drink she had. And I would just simply take some notes in the backdrop. And so then, especially if I see you coming back the second time. But overall, that approach allowed me to, number one, by writing it down, by being intentional. The key thing here, too, is what I found as it relates to work. If we really want to excel, it's about being a little more intentional, Steve. And you know this, too, being a little more intentional and a little more disciplined. And the payoff is amazing. And so I would also take that 3-ring binder, I would review it. If someone came in and I didn't quite remember their name, I could go and I could flip through it. But overall, that gave me the ability to be able to have a recall system that was in place. And then as I went further in my career, I'm realizing that, every serious leader out there is spending time outside learning. And I'm realizing I need a good system to capture that key intel, catalog it, and recall. And so I then realized, okay, I'm using good tools to capture and catalog, but the recall piece, I want to make sure I'm not forgetting. And I'm kind of realizing and remembering back to the bartending days. And so there's a tool that's out there that I have in my book that go into all the detail, step-by-step playbook, a tool called Anki, A-N-K-I, which means memorization in Japanese. And it's a simple digital flashcard app. It's open source. It's powerful. If we were pre-med, we're going to be using this tool to memorize, hours and hours of anatomy, for example. And what I realized, Steve, is that if I start to spend a little bit of my time that I'm learning and dedicate it to actually recall, and I started doing this with the names of people, the names of my clients, the names of their spouses, the names of their kids, all of a sudden I realized I'm developing a superpower. So I'll pause there and get your feedback.
Well, I caught that. You slipped that right in there. You slipped my wife, Sherry, in there, just demonstrating, right? You remember my wife's name was Sherry, right?
That's right.
And there was a perfect example. And here's what I'll say about that is It's a little bit of what I would call a pattern interrupt. When you bump into somebody a second time and you demonstrate, wow, you remember that? You become memorable. Hey, I just saw that you and I were we also do some networking together, right, Steve? And you and I were in the same room last Friday, and I was using your strategies, Steve, and I ran into somebody that I was able to remember something from. Not we hadn't even met. It was just something that I remembered from something he had posted online, and it blew him away. It blew him away. It was so cool.
Right.
You could just see it. He's like, "Wow, you remember that?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the thing: that pattern interrupt, that ability to remember something personal about him. I'm also a big believer in reciprocity, right? So if I remember him, he's going to want to remember me,
That's exactly right.
right? And so here's what I'll say. If you want to be remembered, then you've got to be memorable. And what you're talking about, this is the best ways because you make that personal connection and somebody says, wow, he took the time to remember me. I better make the time to remember him.
That's right.
Yeah. So I love that, Steve. I love that. So tell us about the forgetting curve.
Yeah, I will. So the forgetting curve, there's Dr. Hermann Ebbinghaus, German psychologist back in the 1880s, first published his findings on the forgetting curve. And he found that people forget 75% of what they learn in the first week, and it continues to taper without spaced repetition, without reinforcement. And then the University of Amsterdam in 2015 revisited Dr. Hermann Ebbinghaus's original research from the 1880s and discovered that actually the number is higher. It wasn't 75%, it's 83.5% of what we learn as leaders we're going to forget in the first week without reinforcement. And so that's a huge opportunity. We all know this. I mean, we're smiling at it because we know it. I mean, we live it. We're consuming more, we're meeting more people, but we're forgetting more names. And so how can we flip that script so that as leaders, we can be a little more intentional, a little more disciplined and have a simple system. And I've spent, I mean, just like you, Steve, we're operators. I'm all into hyper efficiency. We all have a very limited amount of time. And so what I use in the book is the complete roadmap, step by step, of how to build a system. It's a learning operating system. So you capture, catalog, and recall what matters most so you can lead with authority when it counts.
Love it. I love it. All right. So you could see this here. You can see that there's a system. There is a system to this. And the system to making networking work, and what we'll be talking about in the workshop is exactly that. But it's about, look, in the room should be tipping that first domino. It should be kicking off the system and getting to meet people, but getting to be remembered at the key point. It takes more of that effort. You need to break through that forgetting curve. You need to be memorable. You need to help people realize, what you should be remembered for. And frankly, you might need to remind them a few times. But these are all things that are going to make you the person that's the go-to person when those people come up to that situation and say, yeah, that's the person. I know just the person you have to meet.
I love that, Steve. And also thinking about what you said earlier, it's the principle of reciprocity. If you remember someone, like I remember I met someone and I asked him, I knew his three sons' names, and I asked him how his sons were doing by name. And he paused in that moment, and I heard him say, some of my best friends don't know that I have three sons and other names. And so you're right. In that moment, this relationship just deepened. And there's that principle of reciprocity. We've now created a more genuine connection. And so that's really important. And also it's the idea, and I call it in the book, network gold. We're always listening for network gold. So when I learned, for example, that you were going to be moving into a new house, that's an opportunity for me to say, hey, Siri, remind me in a week and a half to follow up with Steve about his new house. That's a big deal, a move, how that's working and, the new dynamics of that house move. And so as leaders, especially as networkers, we're constantly hearing this network goal, but are we capturing it? And I know people that have read the book that there's an app called Email Me that you can take notes and it will send you an email so you can operationalize that network gold. I heard someone say that he was in a restaurant. He was in a restaurant meeting with some of his really key clients, new clients, and there were new faces in that meeting. And he ended up going to the restroom and he used his phone to capture all of the key details because he didn't want to forget those. And so, I mean, no matter how we do that, the key thing is to be aware and understanding that there's an opportunity to create a more intentional, a more genuine human connection by pausing, remembering names, capturing those names, and having a system so that if we see them at Whole Foods or we see them at another networking event, before they put on their name badge, we can address them by name, and that's going to change the relationship.
So true. So true. So look, you got a copy of the book that we can show people? It's on my
I do.
iPad.
Yeah.
There it is. Leadership Recall by Steve Kahle. All right. Where can they get it? Do you have a website? Do they go to Amazon? What should they do?
Yeah, so I'm going to make it really easy. The design of this was that, hey, yeah, definitely it's available. It's on Audible. It's my voice. Also, I've got it on Kindle, paperback, as well as hardcover as well. But also, if you go to leadershiprecall.com, you can be able to get a no-cost version of the PDF or the audio version and check it out. And I would just encourage you, and I know, Steve, even you reading the table of contents, I mean, read the intro and then read the table of contents and see if it resonates. And if you're looking for a way where you're ready to battle against the forgetting curve and be able to have a simple system that will allow you to be set apart as a leader, as a hyper connector, this book is for you.
There's another thing that you just demonstrated there. You remembered that, the table of contents itself in the book really made an impression on me, because right there, and you could just see the table of contents right on Amazon, but Steve's giving you the whole book for free, so take advantage of it. But he writes that, read that table of contents, because you're going to see he writes in a way that makes it easy for you to apply it. And if you want the results, you got to apply it. But Steve makes it super, super easy. Steve, I want to thank you. I think it's going to be so helpful. The website again, tell me.
Yeah, leadershiprecall.com.
Leadershiprecall.com. Go ahead, grab that book, read it, give Steve a good review, a 5-star review. He deserves it. It's a great book, great system. And the cool thing is, technology today, and I always say, technology changes nothing, but improves everything. And that means you got to have a system, you have to have a process. Steve lays that out, but then he also shows you that because of technology, you don't have to walk around with a 3-ring binder anymore. You got everything you need right there on your phone.
That's exactly right.
Steve, thank you. Any final words?
No, it's good. Yeah, thank you for the smart questions. And I think a lot of times leaders will hear this and think, okay, not now, but we're running out of not now. So I think this is time to take action. And I just want to say that and you've seen it as well, Steve. This has really enriched my life in incredible ways. When I go for a prayer walk around my neighborhood, for example, I know my neighbors by name. I know their dogs' names, and it just creates an incredible connection. We know that, the key to long-term happiness and success is relationships. Let's make that investment and recall what matters today.
Fantastic. Steve Kahle, Leadership Recall, leadershiprecall.com. Thank you so much for being here today, Steve.
You're welcome, Steve. My pleasure.